Hey everybody, back again. Sorry for all the delays going on. I managed to get sick again and lost my voice last Wednesday, so we're back in the saddle and I'm planning a much more consistent release schedule of these going forward, barring something unforeseen. But we're finally getting through the book of Daniel. We've only got maybe a few weeks left in this book here, and we are on the second half of our long chapter 4 in the book of Daniel. And it's the last chapter that we are going to be with King Nebuchadnezzar. You remember him. He's the guy who Daniel always confronts with God's control and power, the reality that God is king over all the earth, that he sets things up how he pleases, and that God has a plan that we should listen to and follow. But Nebuchadnezzar is the guy that always gives God lip service, who always comes in and says, yeah. I know that God's in control over all the earth, but I'm actually pretty cool, and I'm actually king over Babylon, so I'm going to do what I want anyways. Oh yeah, God, you're so cool, yeah, I know that, but I'm going to continue to live exactly the way that I see fit. Because guess what? In Nebuchadnezzar's mind, you know who's actually in control? You know who's actually number one? Well, it's Nebuchadnezzar. So, God's getting sort of fed up with this, as you can imagine. This guy seeing a sign from him, right? Hearing wisdom from Daniel, having his dreams interpreted. So God gives Nebuchadnezzar an ultimatum, and he says, listen, you are going to be humbled if you keep this up. You are going to be cut down like a great tree in the forest. Because even though you stand with your head high above all other kingdoms, all other kings, I am the King of Kings, I am the Lord of Lords, I've created you, and I'm going to cut you down to size if you can't figure out what's going on here, Nebuchadnezzar. So, you might be thinking, Ben, what does this have to do with me? And that'd be a fair question. We want to know what the Bible has to say to us. And none of you are ancient Near East kings. I don't think. If you do, we need to have a talk because something got miscommunicated. What does this have to do with you? You're not over a kingdom. Well, remember, we've been talking about how the book of Daniel is all about the people of God living in a society that it has vastly different ideas of what life is about than they do. It's the people of God living in a foreign land with different ideas that they are going to try to give the people of God about what life's all about, where authority comes from, what the most important thing is, and the people of God are called to be faithful to God's plan and purpose for their lives while they are being dragged back and forth by the society. And this society is a society of power. It's a society of self-definement. It's a society where Nebuchadnezzar has the most money, he's got the most power, he has the most authority, so he is on top and he defines what is good. He defines what is great. Everyone looks at Nebuchadnezzar and they say, oh man, that is the top dog. And guess what? You and I, just like the Israelites, are not in a society where what we believe God has called us to is the number one thing that everyone else around us believes. We're in a society where our worth revolves around things like how much money we make, how successful we are in our careers. Our society has all these ideas about us building ourselves up into something strong and respectable, pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and making something of ourselves, making sure that nobody can look at us and tell us that we are something lesser. We are called in our society to fend for ourselves, to make something great of ourselves, and to get up there any way that's necessary. And that's not always through dishonest practices or being a mean or bad person, but it does give us a narrative where we are the center. You define your reality. You can do anything you want. You are capable of great things. These are the messages that you guys get as kids, and you are capable of great things, and you make choices that define yourself. But guess what? Who you are and what you choose and the places that you think you might want to go aren't at the center of the puzzle. If we always think that we are in control of our lives, that we are the centerpiece, that what we want matters and everything else goes to the back, and we just try hard and we work hard and then we succeed. If we embrace that promise, we're going to be disappointed because we're not in control. Even somebody as strong as the king, right? Nebuchadnezzar, the most successful guy there is, he embraces the narrative that he's the one in control, that he's the head honcho, that what he says goes. He says, I can get everything that I want and everything that's good, money, women, power, riches, good food, comfort, all of that is mine. I'm in control. I'm Nebuchadnezzar. And God says, no. I'm in control. And the one who's going to be truly blessed, the one that's going to be truly successful, is the one who comes and listens to my will and follows my plan, because I created you and I have set out for you a way to live that is actually going to bring you fulfillment and blessing and happiness, and that will, no matter what happens when you're following me and you're following my plan, you are following the plan of the one who is actually in control. So even when things go astray, even when bad things happen, you can rest assured knowing that the plan that you're following is not going to break. The plan of God, when you make that number one, nothing is going to stop that. But Nebuchadnezzar hasn't got that sunken through his head quite yet. And we think we might get there by the end of this chapter. So if you remember, Daniel has warned him, God is going to cast you out and you're going to be like an animal if you keep up this pride. So listen to what Nebuchadnezzar has to say. Daniel chapter 4, verse 28. All of these things came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months, he was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon, like looking down, right? He's the top dog on top, standing on top of his palace in his kingdom. Excuse me. And the king said, is this not magnificent Babylon, which I have built as a royal capital by my mighty power and by my glorious majesty? You guys picking up on it? Yeah. Nebuchadnezzar thinks it's all about him. And while the words were still in the king's mouth, a voice came from heaven. O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is declared, the kingdom has departed from you. You shall be driven away from human society, and your dwelling shall be with the animals of the field. You shall be made to eat grass like an ox, and 7 times 7 shall pass over you, until you have learned that the Most High has sovereignty, that's control, over the kingdoms of men, and gives it to whom he wants. Immediately the sentence was fulfilled against Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven away from human society, and he ate grass like an ox, and his body was bathed in the dew of heaven, until his hair grew as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails became like birds' claws. This guy goes feral, right? He's like running around in the woods, naked, hair growing all over, nails getting all long. He goes crazy. For 7 years, he goes crazy and is running around in the woods. Let's look at what happened next. When that period was over, I, Nebuchadnezzar, so we're talking from Nebuchadnezzar's perspective, right? This whole chapter has been written like it's Nebuchadnezzar writing down what's happened to him. Lifted my eyes to heaven, and my reason returned to me. God gives Nebuchadnezzar back what he gifted him in the first place, his reason, his humanity. And he says, I blessed the Most High, and praised and honored the one who lives forever. For his sovereignty is an everlasting sovereignty, and his kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are counted as nothing, and he does what he wills with the host of heaven and the inhabitants of the earth. There is no one who can stay his hand or say to him, what are you doing? At that time my reason returned to me, and my majesty and splendor were restored to me for the glory of my kingdom. And my counselors and my lords sought me out, and I was reestablished over my kingdom, and still more greatness was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol the honor of the King of heaven, for all of his works are truth, and his ways are justice, and he is able to bring low those who walk in pride. So, God sets out and he humbles this king, Nebuchadnezzar. Is God just trying to be a bully and make a point? That he's in control and he's the powerful one, and you're not powerful, I'm powerful. No, that's not what God is trying to do. God is trying to show Nebuchadnezzar and all people, through extension, that he is the one who is really in control of what life has to offer. And when we seek out false senses of power and security, that we're actually going to things that are empty and false and not true. When we try to work really hard to make ourselves into something that we think we're in control of, and to succeed at something, or to be at the top of something, or to earn something, right? If it's money or power or respect or popularity, and we think those things are going to give us fulfillment and authority and make sure that we get the things that we want, we're actually chasing a false dream. We've bought into a lie of what life is really all about and who's in control. What we want to learn from this story of Nebuchadnezzar is that God is in control of life. God is in control of all that we, not all that we do and say, but all of these things around us. And that he has a plan, and it's a good plan. God wants good things for us when we follow him. But when we act as though we are the ones controlling our own fates, when we buy into the lie that life is all about us getting to the top of whatever we want, or grabbing onto whatever we want and holding on as tight as we can, and we think that we are the captain of the ship, we have bought into a lie. And that's not to say that there aren't things in us that we want, that we can want and we can pursue, but that we pursue those things not to be in control, not to be number one, not to be the top dog, not to answer only to ourselves and no one else, but we pursue them as we listen to and worship and hear the voice of God and follow his plan in our life. And that's not some mystical thing where you need to hear God speaking down from heaven. He's written this book, right? He's shared this book with human authors who've taken time and written it down to show us what life is all about. He sent his son Jesus to show us what life was all about. And that life is a life of listening and having a relationship with him, getting to know him, praying and spending time with him, and then also showing love and respect and inviting other people to know him, to living life with the people around us and sharing with them the same love that God has shared with us. And that's not a oppressive purpose. And as we make that the number one thing in our lives, and we seek out that plan, and we do it in all of our walks of life, wherever we happen to be, with all of our other goals that we've succeeded at, we can know that God's plan is going forward. And no matter what happens in the transient, shifting of life, where our jobs or, relationships or anything like that goes, that God's plan is going forward, and that he is taking care of us, and that he has promised that what we are doing has worth and value, and that he is watching out for us because he is in control. He is the king above all kings. And that is an awesome reality, that God invites us to be part of his eternal kingdom and wants to give us all a place in it. He's given us all passions that he wants us to pursue. He doesn't want us to not go after what we want. He wants us to do it in the context of his greater plan and kingdom. And when we do that, guess what? The things that we want and the things that we enjoy, the things we want to pursue our passions, become even more important and beautiful in God's greater plan. All right. Hope you guys have a good week, and I hope this got a little something for you. This is the last we're going to see in Nebuchadnezzar as we continue through Daniel, but there's a few good chapters of message left before we're done. Bye-bye.